What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Fuego here.
And I'm Marcia Fuego.
Back with yet another review straight out of the Phoenix Film Festival 2017, along with the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival. Special thanks to Monty, Jason, and of course Patrick from Allied. So thank you guys very much for hooking us up and letting us come down. But today we are going to be reviewing the movie, which I don't know exactly where it's at in its possible release or distribution, but
Festival circuit.
Festival circuit. Okay, yeah. It is called Unnerved. And Fuego, why don't you, well, here we go. We'll do it as usual. We'll do our overall thoughts, and then we'll do the story and acting and effects and all that stuff. So first off, I was not unnerved by Unnerved. I was unnerved, got on my nerves. How's that? That's probably better.
That works.
I actually was on board for the middle act. But I was annoyed by the first act because we've seen it so many times, and then I was completely baffled by their choice in the end of the movie. So
yes,
that's
the very end.
that's pretty much my overall thoughts on it.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I didn't really get too invested in the film until their paranormal expert comes to join them, and I guess we'll get to that in the story. But yeah, as a whole, I thought it was beautifully shot, you know, being in Maine and everything, and some of the locale was cool.
Oh, they were in Maine?
Yeah. Performances were not terrible, but, you know, they were a little over the top at times when they didn't necessarily need to be. So, regrettably kind of tropey and just not satisfying, not scary. They called it a love story at the Q&A that we saw, so maybe that's why.
So they have to tell themselves.
Yeah. Marcia, what'd you think? Being a Maine native.
I think it was a fail. It's a horror movie, and probably
but it
a love
wasn't. It was a love story.
But that's why they describe it differently.
It probably is a love story to you because
I agree.
I didn't get it like at all. Like the first third of the movie, like you're like, okay, what's the point? Like they did briefly say, okay, there was something going on. They don't show you what happens in their house. They just see them running away, and then the stupid lady, whatever. I'm getting into the story, but it's just there was a lot of. I guess they're trying to showcase the hate that comes when you lose a child between a couple, and then you're haunted by that, and that's where the haunting comes from. But I don't know. It was just like no.
Fuego, why don't you let everyone know what the story was then?
So the story was essentially, it begins with a punch, and I think when we first sat down and the movie started, we were like, okay, this could be interesting. It starts with a couple escaping a home, and you know, the wife wants to stay back and, you know, help their child because they kind of reveal right away that, okay, the child is going crazy, presumed demonic possession, and they're trying to escape before anything more horrible happens.
They didn't presume that. No,
I thought they did.
No. To me, it was
something weird just happened.
Something weird was happening in the house.
She said, "I need to go back for him, though."
And then the dad did say that's not him.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the dad did say that's not our son.
Right.
Yeah.
At that point.
So that does lead you to believe that.
Yeah, but even later in the movie, they say things were happening before it happened with the son.
Okay.
So that's it kind of built on there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was. That's the thing. It was a little all over the place. It was a little confusing as to what actually happened, but not in the mysterious way, just in the confusing way.
Yeah.
So yeah, they rush out, and as they're driving away, she wants to go back so much that she pulls the wheel, yanks the car, they get in a wreck, and as we've seen in numerous movies, usually a drama, of course, she's the one that yanked the wheel, he's the one that gets paralyzed.
Oh yeah.
So that's
why would you yank the wheel?
That's the conflict.
She's being a dumb bitch is what it was.
So basically we find out that they are actually, you know, this thing has been chasing them, and they've moved a number of times in the past 8 months, which is, you know, the movie starts and then 8-month flash forward, he's in the chair and all this stuff, and they've moved, I think, 5 times, they said at this point, because things keep happening, but they're determined to make this house, make it a stand, and so...
It's a sweet spot.
And then Fuego, they recruit someone. Right? Continue from there.
Yeah, they recruit somebody that the husband has apparently seen on reality TV, which is where the film actually gets interesting, finally, where they're doing something a little bit different with it. And she's just serving at this little podunk diner, and since he recognized her, he brings the wife there. I thought initially he was like kind of sweet on her or something, but then you realize, oh, okay, he wants to recruit her to help with this spiritual force that has followed them from place to place to place. The wife is very skeptical of her. The girl is skeptical that they're even like that they're not pulling like some publicity stunt or something. She thinks they're lying. That was one of the better scenes in the film where they prove that they're not full of crap, where she takes the fork
you keep stepping forward.
Sorry.
Yeah, so once they get this woman on board to actually help them, who was apparently kicked off of the show for not wanting it to be scripted and silly, that's where the movie actually gets interesting, and yet underutilized once they really get there, I thought. And they kind of squandered the potential that they started to show halfway through the film.
And all their scares were off screen.
Yeah,
everything was off screen. Like the paranormal lady disappears and you hear her like going around taking Polaroids at nothing, and then like, you know, she comes back in a frantic, like, you guys aren't telling me the truth of what happened. And it's like, why do you think that? We didn't see anything that you were doing outside. Like, what's the whole point of you? What is the point of this movie?
She could sense the energy, remember?
Like, it doesn't make any sense. You just wasted 10 minutes of my time. Me just sitting there.
More than that.
Like, just sitting there. They're just sitting there being scared while she's running around in circles.
While they're just doing a circle with the camera that they think is super artistic.
There's nothing in there. There's
like
nothing in the room.
And a lot of people might agree that is artistic, but to me, it's been done. It's not scary when you're not making it scary.
It's only scary if there's actually something there.
Right.
That, you know, or a hint of something being there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make sense if
a Polaroid camera snap is not scary.
No.
But I will say I do agree with Fuego in that's when it got interesting, and then unfortunately when we veered away from that's when it stopped being interesting, because I like in these movies when they bring in a paranormal expert and she clearly demonstrates that she is a paranormal expert, like she can do certain things. Like, I like when they do that and she calls them out right away, like, what aren't you guys telling me? Like, I like that, except they had to play that card even one too many times.
Yeah.
True.
You know, so
because they still didn't come out and tell her everything.
Right.
I did enjoy the fact that she brought all the old gear with, and they're like, that's old stuff. Why aren't you using digital? And she's like, no, that gives the definitive or the non, the older stuff, the actual tape shows the gray area in between where you could get something. I thought that was novel and cool, but once again, like you guys were saying, when they veered back to the love story, and the third half of it was where they lost us again. They started with the love story, ended with the love story, and in the middle, when they had that third person adding some additional energy to the film, that was where it was interesting, but then they cycled right back to the boredom.
And there was some really confusing parts, like there was we let the sun go or something. I can't remember what happened, but like the couple decided we're gonna do it now, and so they're like doing it, and then the paranormal person's like getting like attacked. And I'm like, is she supposed to be getting raped? Like, is she getting raped by the girl that's raping her husband? I have no idea what's happening. What is the point? And they never explain what it has. And then didn't she just like die or something?
They never really, and that's the thing. They left so much gray area and so much was so many loose ends and so many gaping plot holes and so much.
I don't get it.
Just stupidity, like where they're walking into a certain scene where they're not sure if characters are dead or not.
Yeah.
And
it felt like they were trying to tell a story
without
a complete story.
That's
what it felt like.
It felt like they were trying to be artistic with not enough to work with. Like, the problem for me, like they kept hammering, because some of the filmmakers were there after the movie, which frankly the movie could have been called Dutch Tilt, the movie, because there were so many unnecessary Dutch tilts, like the camera just laying on an angle for no reason at all. Like a couple times I could see why, but as often as they did it, it was just too much. But anyway, they were all very proud of the fact that this is a love story. This is way more, the A story is the love story, the B story is the ghost story. I'm like, no. You started with them running from the ghost. The whole thing is them running from the ghost. That's your A story. Your B story is your love story, and you're not giving enough attention to your B story.
Yeah.
Like, if you're trying to build a love story, like, it's so weird.
Your
like,
A story.
No, you're not giving enough attention to your B story, your love story.
Oh.
Like, you want this to be a love story, you're not doing it right, because to me, he hated her the whole movie,
and
that never changed
except
for me either. She tries to dance with him at once, and again, how many times have we seen that where the guilty spouse dances with the other spouse in the wheelchair, and it's like, that's not unique. It's not endearing, and it's when he's barely cracking a smile at that, and then he goes back to being a sourpuss immediately after. That's not evolution in their relationship. No. And she, we'll talk about the acting. Let's talk about that.
That's the best thing to do right now.
Yeah, because she frustrated me. She frustrated me. She got better. Though. She got better as the movie went on, but at first I was so annoyed because every time she had to say something to him, she leaned down and got right in his face and was super serious. Yeah, and was like, "I'm here because I love you," and it's like, dude, can you sound less like a robot when you say it? It just, none of the love story worked for me at all.
She was talking down to him, was the vibe that I got. Like he was a small wounded animal or a child or something. She was talking to him like she probably talked to the lost little boy that they don't have in their lives anymore. And you have to see genuine love between two characters to want to see the redemption of that love. And since we never really had any scenes where you bought into their chemistry and their love, it didn't really make you sympathize for either of them being sourpuss on the guy's end or just, wounded. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with it, and I'm just running around, and, the acting didn't work for me, and she went so over the top at the end, Marcia. Oh my God, it was ridiculous.
And I don't think it's 100% just the acting. I think it's just the chemistry of the two actors didn't meld, and because they didn't
script.
And some of the lines they gave her in that third act.
And also, like you said, they didn't give us that the prior to the give us the love story. How do we know they actually were in love in the first place? We don't. We just think these people should probably split up.
Yeah, you didn't get that vibe in the opening 2 minutes of the movie that they loved each other, with the exception of, I'm not going to leave you behind, I'm not going to lose you too. And that's all you get.
That's all you got. And then he hated her for the rest of the time, so it's like...
He's just blazing.
Okay, I don't get it. And, okay, sorry, in the paranormal lady, that scene when they're at the diner, I was like... not buying it.
There was something I felt that was off about it too.
Yeah,
someone was trying too hard or something.
Yeah, it was not flowing together at all. They needed to scrap that dialogue and just let the actors meld, because it was not working. That whole her with a, oh, I don't believe you. You guys are just trying to make fun of me.
I think it was just the chemistry. I think it's because I think the ghost hunter lady was good. And I think they weren't.
Yeah.
And so she's trying her best to bounce stuff off these two blocks of wood.
And it was just
and it's just not working.
Dead.
Yeah, acting producer, I think the guy was. He was one of the producers on it, and he was also acting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And that's not to knock it. I mean, it wasn't terrible or anything, but it
hit. It was
the chemistry wasn't there. And sometimes it's tough.
I expected more from it, because there were times I was like, okay, I think it's gonna go. I think we're gonna get it, and then they didn't show us any of the scares. They didn't use any opportunities to scare us.
The editing was confusing. They decided to do things that didn't make sense. They are actually showing flashes of things.
Yes.
Way early, but it wasn't as though a character was having visions or anything. They were just showing flashes.
Needless foreshadowing.
Right, it was. Because they were showing. Okay, so they were showing pictures of her we don't
want to say what the end is. No.
I'm not going to say what the end is, but they were showing us images of her in the water that didn't coincide with anything that we've already seen, and it didn't match the beginning story at all. You think if you're going to do flashes like that, it's going to be flashback to what happened at the house.
But that's
I thought that's what they were trying to mislead us into thinking, that's what we were seeing.
I never thought that, because it was the...
I know, that's why I was saying trying.
It was the lake that they were currently at the whole plot. So
that's true.
That was very confusing. I was like, what was the point of that? And I never got the reason why.
Well, and there were gaping holes in the storytelling in this as far as explanation goes, and the motivation of the spirit after them, and how it actually originally happened. And I guess maybe you don't have to explain those things, but you and I were talking about this after we watched it. We're like, well, if you have to say, well, I guess it was maybe like this, but
when you're making excuses for the movie, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem. Yeah. There's a difference between making excuses as to what happened in the movie and hypothesizing as to what happened in the movie.
Exactly. And Yeah, that's the difference for this movie. What do you think about the special effects? There wasn't a lot of special effects, but there was one particular scene that really confused me, which was when they came across the owner's bodies, and they
the makeup effect was so odd.
like
I couldn't even, and it was over too fast to really be able to focus on it.
It looked like somebody was eating off of them almost. Like I think it was supposed
I felt
to
like
be
they
decay,
decomposed, and yet why wouldn't they smell them when they were walking
I didn't
into
even
the
see
home
human features. To me, it looked like beehives. Like
Almost,
it really was
yeah.
so
like
weird
they got
looking.
like all like messed up.
But there was only
yeah.
like chunks here and there, but it was almost as though they did a fresh layer of liquid latex and then they just started chunking it out, which they said after the movie when they were up there, they were saying, yeah, it was just a bunch of liquid latex, and it's like, well, why did you say that? Like
Don't
now I
reveal
know
all
you
your
just
secrets,
bleh,
pull
and
the
then
curtain
chunked
back.
it out to make it look scary.
Yeah.
Well,
And they didn't even explain why they died.
And also,
You have to know what
kinda
you're
figured
looking
he
at
was
to
under
make
the
it
bed, maybe.
kind of scary. There has to be a semblance. You have to recognize it at least a little bit.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, those don't even look like human heads. Like there's no
why
scare.
they cut it so quick.
Yeah.
They
And
didn't want to linger on it because it looked that.
yeah, I know because of what was underneath the bed, but that doesn't explain why they were dead. Really.
Once again, to the gaping plot holes I was mentioning, explanation
'Cause
for
they didn't explain
how things
any of
happened,
that. Oh, they
how we
kinda
got to
did,
where we
but
were.
not enough. Not
Yeah.
enough.
Art house horror, unfortunately, random imagery that doesn't always coalesce and
I think
have that.
I think it was a good first attempt.
It was a
that
good. Well,
rude?
they were certainly pleased with it.
Is that rude? First attempt.
No, I
Is
mean
that
I don't
rude?
know if it was their first attempt or not,
Yeah.
but
I think comparing it to The Fly was a little overboard, but you know.
yeah, you think?
In any event,
I
it
think
was
that's
not
gonna do
terrible.
it, you guys.
We're not trying to like slog on this. We're just giving
We're giving our
personal
opinions. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't like things.
And there were a
You
lot
know.
of people that dug it.
It wasn't
and
without
there
its
were a lot
merits,
of people in
you
there
know?
that dug it and applauded. So, I mean, you know,
I mean,
not
would-
all these movies are going to be for everybody.
Yeah, and would we all agree at least the middle was pretty good?
Yeah,
I mean,
like
it was
when
the,
the-
Middle was pretty good.
It
When
was
they
the high
were
point of the
building-
film.
when
It
they
was
were
the high
building
point of the
the
film,
tension
but it was
and-
still like a not as good version of that thing
Things
that
we've
we've seen in other
before,
movies.
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm trying here, guys.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for our review of Unnerved. Check it out if it sounds like it's going to intrigue you, but if it sounds like you might get frustrated like us, then perhaps skip it. I don't know. Maybe watch it when it's $1.50 at Redbox or something like that, if it gets there. So,
Or on Shudder or streaming
Shudder,
somewhere.
yeah, exactly. You know, let's start talking about those sites. Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
worth a watch.
So, so that's going to do it, guys. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, Jaime Fuego.
And I'm Marcia Fuego.
And remember,
Stay
stay scared.